This is the Real Footy Podcast. Hello and welcome to the end of the trade period. Unsurprisingly, a stack of players found new homes as the trades kicked into gear late and hard before the final deadline. A deadline that was non-negotiable and made for plenty of drama, and some players left without getting to the homes they'd hoped for. My name is Michael Gleeson, and joining me today are Jake, Niall and Peter Ryan for the end of the trade period. Jake, what did you think? Zach Merrett's the story in many ways because he's the player that didn't get where he wanted to go.
Well, the way I've described it is that the Merrett's an earthquake and then there's aftershocks of the other three players that were left at the altar. I'm mixing metaphors here.
Yeah, earthquakes at the altar.
Earthquakes. There were three. Of course, there was Rowan Marshall, didn't get to Geelong. Buku Khamis, which is a bit mystifying that he couldn't get to Carlton. He was contracted as well, and they were both contracted. And then we had this sort of Mexican standoff, is how I would describe this, between Adelaide and Brisbane.
Was that at the altar or in an earthquake, that Mexican
No,
standoff?
that was the good, the bad and the ugly. That was like Lee Van Cleef and Eli Wallach and Clint Eastwood. You know, so actually that's two parties. Anyway, I'm getting a bit carried away. But the big story here is what failed.
Well, the Calamachi one is really interesting, Pete. You were there as well with at the end of the with the press conference. Calamachi, two-time premiership player, wanted to get to Adelaide. He's uncontracted.
Yep.
And a deal couldn't be done. And his manager, Ben Williams, was there at the press conference, which is surprising in itself. Asked if he'll be back at Brisbane. He said, zero chance.
Zero
he will
chance.
be at Adelaide.
Stood next to Justin Reid in almost one of those kind of show of support that Calamachi will see that he's going to be going to Adelaide in the pre-season draft, which means Brisbane didn't get anything in return for Calamachi, or won't. And you put the question to Dom Ambrosio, the list manager at the Lions, and he said the offer that they put in was, they just realised they thought, or they think, that they weren't going to make much use of what they'd offered, so they were
those
prepared
picks
to
aren't
walk away.
worth much to us, then we're not going to bother. Yeah, I get the principle of that, but then equally, you're going to lose him for nothing. He's a two-time premiership player that wants to walk out and he hasn't got a contract and has made it clear he's not going to stay.
Yeah.
You can turn those picks into something if you want to.
I would have thought so. I mean, he is a two-time premiership player who's giving great service, but they have their reasons for it.
I suppose the one from the outset, though, was always going to be the hardest one, that we'd all on different podcasts rated this the most unlikely of the deals, and in the end, the Zach Merrett deal didn't happen, despite his own late intervention ringing Andrew Welsh, the president of the club, and pleading with him to let him go. Enormous damage to Essendon in a broad image sense, as far as your leader wants to leave.
Yep. The
captain of your club wants out and tries his best to blow the relationship up. And yet, in some ways, it also shows the strength of the club, that they're just saying, well, we're not going to do it.
Well, what's going to happen here is that, just to go into the future at Essendon and Hawthorn, because let's look at these two clubs. What's going to happen is that, first of all, in pre-season, Zach Merrett, speaking to people at Essendon, is going to have to stand in front of the playing group and have some sort of explanation. That's necessary. But I think, for better or worse, and he won't be captain.
No.
And he won't be, I don't believe he'll be in the leadership group.
Should he? What do you mean by explanation?
Well, he'll have to say something to the players. I think that the expectation is that he will address this attempted escape. It's not that he has to justify it, but he'll have to say something. You can't just not say anything. Now, I'm sure he spoke to Andy McGrath, he's spoken to players through this, and he's spoken to Brad Scott, I believe, a number of times.
And some of those players have made it pretty clear too that they weren't happy with him.
With the way he did it.
No, disappointed.
Meeting with Sam Mitchell.
You spoke to one, Pete.
Yeah, no, I mean, Nick Martin chose his words carefully, but he was clearly disappointed by him and felt a bit let down.
So that's so one thing is that Merrett will have to have those steps. The other thing I think it's going to happen more practically is that he'll be like a consultant. I think it's the famous Lee Matthews description of Jason Ackermanis. He's not a character like Jason Ackermanis, but he's not going to be, I don't think he'll be so much of a leader in the playing group. If he ever was, I think the record shows that he hasn't been a particularly great captain. He's a fantastic player and a great professional, but he's not of the people.
Well, his latest performance would suggest anything but leadership.
So he won't be he will be more. I think he'll be just super professional. He'll turn up. He'll train the house down. He'll play as hard as he ever has. That's what he is. But he won't be. I don't think he'll be enmeshed in the group quite so much.
Maybe
If he ever was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. It could be a catalyst for some sort of change in his thinking.
You think so?
Could be. It's possible. Not at this early stage, but it could be.
Just on the deal itself.
Leopards and sashes.
Just in the deal itself, did you think it was a reasonable deal? Would you have, if you were in Essendon shoes? I think the final deal was effectively 3 firsts. No, hang on. It was 10, 22, a future first, and Huswaite. Yeah. And the Bombers indicated late that they would only entertain something that was 4 firsts and a future second.
Yep.
Which is pretty high for a 30-year-old.
Yeah, well, that's
a level of their saying of how determined they were that the trade wasn't going to happen.
That was read by Hawthorn as, I believe, as they weren't going to trade him. That's how Hawthorn are sort of looking at that. Now, I think the other thing that has to be considered from Hawthorn's point of view is, was this wise when Andrew Welsh had been out on TV and had been on the record and couldn't have been stronger in saying we're not trading him and not reading, in my opinion, the political dimensions of Zach Merrett. Yeah. I think they viewed it, as you've pointed out, Pete, and we all have, that it was a political trade. It was and it got personal. It went political and personal, not simply football. Whereas these other big deals, which we'll get to, Charlie Curnow and Petracca, they were football deals.
Do you think Sam Mitchell's had his standing reputation damaged by the fact that he's, again, met with the captain, again created some drama, and not been able to land the player and not been prepared to have a conversation with one of his own players, which Sydney did with their players, in an attempt to at least get something satisfactory to Essendon? Or do you think they had no chance anyway?
I think there's a double standard that Hawthorn operated under, which is that we won't disrupt our own playing group, but we'll cause maximum disruption to their culture and playing group. And I think this made Essendon more and more incensed. And I believe, I don't think Essendon are going to say this, but I think they've got to an Essendon where Essendon just got to this level where it's suddenly four first rounds. And that's as good as saying go and jump.
That does come back to your first point, which is misreading the political element of it, which is saying, when you first have that conversation, and whether it was Zach reaching out to them first or them reaching out to Zach, what's the likelihood of this happening? And what deal could we give them from the outset that we think would work? And I think they underestimated that. I think that they thought that the tone would shift through the course of a week or so, the week and a half of the trade period, to say, it's untenable for him to return. It's just untenable.
They based it on the untenable. Yeah. That was what they based a lot of their strategy on, it felt like.
Yeah.
Essendon weren't going to take him back under any circumstances, and we'd eventually get him.
Like a game of chicken.
Yeah.
There was a lot of goodwill, I thought, for Essendon in the room. There were a lot of other clubs that were quite happy that Hawthorn didn't land Merrett, and they weren't rewarded for chasing the captain. And
I did make a suggestion to an Essendon official that they should trade out Merrett and then get Dean Wallace in the SSP, which even a Hawthorn person said that they found it amusing, but they weren't prepared to laugh at that.
I thought Bill Duckworth might have come in.
Billy Duckworth.
Lines up on Merrett in round 1.
Exactly. Well, anyway, look, I mean, but then you look at these deals, and a few things have happened. We've got the Charlie Curnow he's got 3 first-round picks.
And Hayward.
Carlton have gotten out of this, and there was a pick going back.
Yeah.
Whereas, and Petracca, it's a really good deal for Melbourne, in my view. Lucky to be dealing with the Gold Coast. Melbourne got 7 and 8 and a future first for Petracca, and they gave all those second-round picks back. They were just so fortunate to be dealing with the Gold Coast Suns with the academy set up where the points are the operative factor. And that's going to change. It's going to be harder to do that sort of deal in the future. So if Melbourne had waited 12 months on Petracca, this sort of deal is just not available. That's the best deal of the 3 superstar players that were up.
Oh, by a long way. I mean, that's 2.
Yeah.
And they also cleared his contract. What did he have, 4 years left, Petracca? And Gold Coast had taken
Gold Coast taken the lot.
Yep.
So, it's a really good deal for Melbourne, but it puts them behind the 8 ball as a contender for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think the difference, though, with Kerno going out to Merrett, and even Petracca for that matter, but they're not the captain of the club, and they're not the only good players at the club. Like,
No.
Carlton's got Mackay sitting there as a capable forward. And look, their net effect, Chris Davies spoke afterwards and said, basically they feel he didn't really factor Tom de Koning and Jack Silvani into this because they were free agents. They couldn't really stop going. But they feel that the players, with bringing in Hayward, Florent, Ainsworth, Chesser, it gives them depth. And with Florent, particularly with Ainsworth and Hayward, you go some way towards replacing the goals that Kerno kicks. So, and you've got a flexibility in the way you can play when you're doing that, rather than just playing. We're going to the two tools.
I also think Melbourne and Carlton have got a significant advantage over Essendon in doing those deals because Stephen King's a first-year coach. He can reset the club, make some big changes, go from ground zero. Michael Voss, is probably difficult, but at least they've got Graham Wright, new in the chair, Chris Davies, new football manager. Voss has probably accepted his lot that we're rebuilding or resetting this place, salary cap. Whereas Brad Scott...
No, I would differ slightly. I'd say Voss is in a tough position because he's lost senior players and the gains will come, but he'll have to hang on for that uplift that will come with Jagger Smith and with
Harry Dean,
and particularly with Cody Walker.
It's difficult for Voss, but for the club, at least they know.
If the club have got reset.
I think their fans recognise that they weren't going to be winning the flag next year, but they are now bringing in Dean. They've got the points to cover that. They've got the points to cover Walker with what they've brought in. So that's the Carlton fans saw on grand final day, if they watched that under-18s game and got excited about Walker, that the priorities for them had to be safeguard these two young players getting in.
Just to answer the question around Merrett, and I know we're going back and forwards a bit, but do you think Essendon's better placed having hung on to him? Even though they've made a stand, do you think they're in a better position to have success in the next 3
I don't think they have success in that short a period of time. I didn't think that the deals were that what they could offer were that great. I think, the pick this year, the first of the picks was good. The later one, back end of a weekend draft that gets pushed back further, and next year's draft, with Merrett in the team, they could win the flag next year, and that would have been or at least be top four. Yeah. So you're talking a very late pick. With players going out, such picks going out for say Cody Walker, so it would have been a pick potentially in the early 20s next year. So I didn't see it as such a. It looked good it read well, but I think when you dig into it, it's not as sexy a pick as your arrangement and total package.
It could well be that the biggest immediate consequence of this is that Hawthorn are going to find it harder to make up the ground on the Brisbane Lions. Geelong maybe, and whoever else has got look at the Gold Coast midfield now. I mean, that's Rao, Anderson, Petracca, and Took Miller. That's the Gold Coast are going to be hard to beat.
Well, and the Gold Coast in this period,
it's the Gold Coast, Jake.
They've got the picks, and with some trading that they'll now do because you can continue to trade draft picks, they'll have the picks to cover the young players coming in. They've brought in Petracca, and for the players going out, Ainsworth, Buderick. They've got Fiorini, Flanders. So there's significant outs in number.
They've lost 5 of their players that weren't played in that first finals win.
Yeah. They're actually ahead on despite paying all of Petracca's salary. They'll actually make money on their salary cap from those out. The net result will be improved. So how much do those players, those outs?
And Jamara's the X factor.
Do we read into the Jamara, which is, a lifeline from Jamara's career? Do we read into that there's concern about Ben King?
Staying.
Or Jed Walter?
I think it was just one of those shot at the stumps sort of, this guy's an enormous talent.
Yeah.
If we can get him right, we'll find somewhere else for those guys to play. With an expanded bench, Reid can play second ruck and just play off the bench. You can play the others forward. They can play Ugelhagen can play tall and small. He's very mobile. amusingly, he did, celebrate with Clayton Oliver the fact that he's, posted to social media a picture of the two of them together. Oliver also getting his wish to get to GWS. That was, unlike Petracca, that was for reasons well known, was for a future third.
Future third, and they have actually, Melbourne are going to pay, we don't know the exact proportion, but say half his contract.
Yeah.
So they wanted him out.
At least over $500,000, isn't it? So a year. So that's significant.
Should we go through some of the deals that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, we've mentioned a few of them. I mean, the big one, obviously, with North trading Finbar Maley.
Finbar Maley.
4 pick. 64 to Adelaide for a bunch of picks. Jai Sarong.
He's a bit like James Manson, Finbar Maley.
Yeah. Very good player, James Manson.
No, he just reminds me of him.
Let's just
anyway,
for the listeners, let's get through.
Well, the other one was an underrated one we were getting to before, but Chankath CJ traded also into Melbourne. So they've losing McVee, they replace a running defender. I think that was a good bit of
business.
Good bit of business. Yeah, Ollie Florent adding, which was a sort of a connected but removed deal from Kerno. What did you make of the Kerno deal overall? We looked at it from the Carlton perspective, but from Sydney, it's really
risky.
They've given up a lot of draft picks.
It's bold.
It's caused a lot of heartburn, I think, in their playing group too, with the players that have been either raised as potential movers or those that have gone out.
Look, it's only, we say this about every trade, but it's one that the wisdom of which will only be. All trades are like that, but this one more so than some others. Like there's some where you sort of go, well, that's a safe bet. This is a gutsy trade from Sydney's point of view because of Charlie's body. I mean, Charlie's not. They got Barry Hall up there, of course, and there were some risks with him with behaviours. They got Lockett up there, and he was one of the greatest players that's played the sport. Similar with Buddy Franklin. Now, Charlie's not in that league. He's similar ability to Barry Hall, but he's a bit older and more injury prone.
It's probably better than Barry Hall, don't you think?
Yeah, he's better than Barry Hall, but
Barry
more
Hall,
exciting.
Barry Hall's
type of player.
Yeah, Barry Hall's performances in Sydney were exceptional.
True.
Brent Staker thought so. He was the difference with Franklin, for instance, is they traded for this. This wasn't a free agent. This was, the question on this is the amount of draft capital that they've given up.
Yeah, well, it's going to depend. That depends, of course, on where they finish and even on academy bids and father-sons in the next couple of years, and even to a very small chance that there's some delay to the Tasmanian entry, which I think you've
I've raised that. I think
the other thing is they've a little bit of depth. They've lost like Hayward and Florent Arts. I mean, I know he wasn't playing.
Florent was in and out.
Yeah, but there's still Kerno. Sydney's depth isn't their strong point. And they've given away first-round picks for the next few years.
No, but you know what? It's hard to get a key forward star.
Yeah.
They're hard to get. There's not many of them.
No.
And they've got one.
Says a bit to Joel Amati and Logan McDonald. And
Charlie's in the next level, particularly to Joel Amati.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He could win them a premiership, let's face it. He's that good.
Well, they might,
He could.
You're looking at those three-gun midfielders and then you're looking with kicking to Charlie.
Yeah.
You want Goulden kicking to Charlie.
Yeah. And they've extended his deal too, so he's got an extra year.
And took a cut.
Well,
they smoothed it out.
Yeah, I think they might have. You might cut in the first year, and therefore there's the second year because there were salary cap pressures that made the negotiations difficult. It wasn't just bring him in. These are the draft picks. I think they needed players to go out in order to get that deal done.
We should mention Jack Steele.
Yeah. Well, that also goes into that whole Melbourne. When you're talking about the draft hand Melbourne's created, they've brought in a good AFL level midfielder.
Well, if they want a cultural overhaul, which Petracca, let's face it, Petracca and Oliver were part of that, and they put Stephen May on the trade table. Jack Steele's a good person to bring in.
Yeah.
Qualities, former captain, or he was basically the captain right up until this year.
Yeah.
And he comes, I think they put an extra year on him. I think they would have smoothed out his deal. And then he's just an inside big body midfielder that they probably need while they develop Langford and Lindsay and a few of those guys.
Yeah, and the other one, another captain that asked to be traded and didn't get anywhere in Jai Simpkin. Collingwood and and North had discussions around that, but the
Were you
North
surprised? Were you surprised that there was very little interest in Jai Simpkin?
Not really. He's one of those players that's probably more highly rated internally than outside the club, and for what North was already saying they wanted,
No, North were wanting a lot, but they rated him as their captain, and they're probably desperate for a few picks. That's fair enough.
But it was a bit different to the Hawthorn Merrett one, in that although it's the captain, it was the captain saying, "I want out," not "I've already been courted by this other club and I'll only go there." He's just saying, "Well, I'd rather play on the midfield, and if I can go, I will." And Collingwood kicked the tyres with it, and they had discussions. But I think a club that's given away first-round draft picks, future picks like confetti, they actually held on to them this time. So
there was also the factor of Hawthorn and Essendon just hate each other's guts, don't they? They were kind of enjoyed that part of the trade process.
Yeah. Well, someone at the Bombers said to me, look forward to round one. And, it wouldn't be like the AFL to promote that game, would it? They're not going to be sort of, line in the sand too, as I described this non-trade. It'll be given.
Well, Lucky Merrett won't be the captain. He wouldn't know what way to call them. Toss the coin.
The thing is, though, who's going to be angry with him? Would it be the Essendon players?
His own players will whack him.
I feel a bit for Merrett. He didn't cover himself in glory, but he wanted to go. He's been there for 10 years.
12 years.
There is a little bit you need to consider. 12 years, and the club's been really tough place to be for a lot of that time.
More. And Anglo-Saxon terms
and just to make it worse, his grandmother died during the week, and he's heading to her funeral on Thursday.
Well, that is sobering.
In Cobden.
Yeah.
So
I think
hell of a week for the poor bugger.
Yeah, I don't think that should be lost, actually, without being too bleeding hard about it. The fact that he's 6-time best and fairest in the crappiest period of all time to be at a club, and he is by far their best player.
And absolute sympathy for the fact that the guy says, I've been here through it all, and you got and looked at the injuries and everything that was wrong with the company. You just still keep letting us down.
Yeah,
I'm doing everything right, and who have we got here? Who's making these decisions? Everything else keeps changing, and not us. So, there's sympathy, but you are the leader. So, we do have a couple of questions. Reader questions. Joe said, like most, he's been following the trade period with interest, been struck by the refusal of clubs to do a deal for a player who wants to leave. Seems to him that there should be a tribunal appeal available to such a player. There is a mediation.
There is.
Yeah, there is mediation scope, but
grievance.
Grievance tribunal.
And mediation. I think they did that with Josh Caddy. In fact, I know they did when he tried to get to Essendon.
What do you think it says about contracts?
Well,
the view it feels to be like players don't rate them because they're signing these long-term deals and then saying halfway through, I want to go. But the Merrett deal sort of reinforces, well, their contract is worth something because we can just say, too bad, too sad, you're staying here.
And the Haywood conversations seem to suggest that clubs, when they want to move a player on, they make it pretty hard for you to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can ask Adam Treloar about that. Did he really have any choice? So I was talking to someone who'd confided in him those 5 years ago and said to Treloar, you can actually stay. And I was like, but they're saying this about me and I can't really.
Yeah.
What about poor old Henry Huswaite? He's going to walk back. Walk back
thrown to the wolves. Henry has to walk back into.
Sorry, Henry, just laughing a bit. Question from Liam: is the failure of Essendon to trade its best asset, who is declining in value, for a swag? We have talked a lot about Essendon, but we'll run through this. The elevating of an individual over the collective. The need to play politics rather than seeking the best long-term option. When do we burn this stupid club to the ground?
Liam.
Wow, Liam.
Gee, Liam.
Don't think we really quite
need to do
that.
Merrett?
I think he was seeking to burn the whole place to the ground.
Liam Sheedy or Liam Merrett or Liam who?
Who runs the biggest risk out of the trade period? Is it Sydney with their trade for Kerno, or is it Gold Coast with Ugle-Hagan? Or is it GWS with Clayton Oliver?
I think that Jamari Ugle-Hagan is a huge risk in terms of getting... Well, not a huge risk. They're only paying $250,000. They've got lots of constraints. But the odds of him being a successful AFL player are a lot longer than Oliver and
I think there's
Kerno.
contract provisions in his that...
Yeah.
it's almost like he's walking on eggshells because they can cut him pretty quickly and easily.
And they did a lot of work. He's going to live with Jared Harborough, which gives him a chance.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of work to make sure the whole club understands what a lot
Well,
of...
it's good to see Jamara celebrating his trade, wasn't he?
Straight to the pub.
Straight to the pub.
Buying around.
Was he there with Clayton Oliver?
Clayton Oliver was already there.
That's quality.
Well, I think it was organised. They're same managers, so I'm sure the managers said go to there and we'll meet you there.
Okay.
So to be fair to them, I don't think it was as, they're not just
great.
on the sauce all day.
It's great. Why not? They're probably entitled
holidays.
Resurrect their career,
I hope
particularly Jamara.
He's such a talent. I hope he, turns it around and performs. And
So do I.
I don't think there's much risk for Gold Coast because I think they've ventured very little here. The only risk is time that they have to deal with if his issues. I think that's the risk, that you could be investing in all these other young players they've got. That you spend too much time on Jamara.
Yeah. Oliver, look, he's been playing. I think he'll, out of Melbourne, maybe that'll help him as well. And the Sydney one we've covered, their exposure is more about.
It's also interesting, the getaway clubs, the northern teams, is where you go if you've had a few troubles. Or you're not happy like Charlie, he would have gone to Geelong, but you those clubs have a lot of appeal to get out of Dodge.
What do you think of the Cats?
Like going to Darwin back in the old days.
The Cats also need to be recognised and applauded for trading a player they'd already delisted.
Oh, what's that guy's name? Patrick Rishko.
I've never heard of him.
Okay, confession time. How many people, when they saw that Patrick Renchko had been traded, said,
"Has he ever been drafted?"
Who's that?
Yeah.
I thought it was one of those expansion club new rules where they've traded a pick to get a bloke who's been on their list.
I thought he'd been added to the Tassie list from the VFL. So he'd already been told he wasn't getting a contract, so he'd been effectively delisted. And
his manager has done a great job.
Well, all it did, they said, is
99.
guarantee him getting there.
No, but he's done well, hasn't he? He's managed to lure him into the trade period. He should be front page of the Age, actually.
Yeah, that's a good deal. Marshall, though, they've tried again, the Cats, to get a ruck.
The Cats tried again to get a ruck. 2 years he had left on his contract with St Kilda. St Kilda indicated for a long time that they probably weren't going to trade him, and then they showed they might want to trade him. Geelong eventually put down a future pick for next year, which probably has more value given the draft's less compromised.
Yeah.
And St Kilda knocked it back. There's a sense probably, and Geelong had a bit more on top of that St Kilda may have been having the conversation but not necessarily ever serious about trading him today.
I think the coach always wanted to keep him.
Yeah, I think
he thinks
right.
that 2 rucks will work, particularly with an expanded bench, even though neither ruck has shown that they can play forward permanently.
Has he got 1 year to go or two?
Two.
Okay.
And he was a bit. I heard Ross's press conference as well. He was a bit non-committal and vague about the poor treatment, to be frank, and the shabby treatment of Leclerc.
Yeah. I think the club. I've spoken to people at the club. They know that was
poor.
Good. Yeah.
Like they've left the guy, and he's like, "Oh, look, it's great. He's been able to stay. He's staying on for about half the money.
Yeah.
Like
there was no
it's
way
life changing what's happened to him."
Yeah.
Well, that is all we have time for today. So thanks for joining us throughout the entire trade period. All of us that have been contributing on a rolling basis. But thanks to Jake and Pete for joining us tonight for the big wrap up. Make sure to stay online though for the latest footy news and analysis at realfooty.com.au. If you've got ongoing questions or suggestions, see your doctor. But otherwise, you can email us at realfootypod@theage.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts.